introduction of our honored guest, Mr. Victor Rangel Ribeiro, who will be releasing the book. Victor was born in 1925 into a Goan family and had a grandmother who loved to tell him folk tales. By the time he entered St. Xavier's College in Mumbai in 1941, he was writing his own stories and had read through most of the Victorian-era literature in the family bookcases. Victor's debut novel, Tivoli, published by Milkweed Editions in 1998, was named one of the 20 notable first novels to be published in America that year. And it won him the Milkweed National Fiction Prize. The New York Foundation for the Arts awarded him its Fiction Fellowship in 1991. A member of Mensa since 1988, he is a trained musician, has covered classical music performances and opera for the New York Times, and was for 3 years music director of the Beethoven Society of New York. He now divides his time between Princeton and Goa, where he conducts writing and editing workshops and also conducts still the occasional concert. Please give him a big welcome, and I would like to invite you.
Can you hear me to begin with?
Yes.
Okay. This is the first in a line of several attempts at publishing literature by young Goan people. The first attempt, as far as I know, started in 1931 in Bombay. And the remote cause of it was 3 Goan professors who were there. Armand Menezes, whose descendant is right here, Ribeiro, floating around. Aloysius Suarez was there, but not quite the same. Francisco Correa Afonso, also a well-known name in Goa. And Patrocínio Andrade was a philosopher. These were gadflies, and they were also very vocal, very personable people. And they inspired people to write, though they themselves did not write, except academically. Amongst his pupils was my brother and sister, and someone, George Coelho, was very dynamic, was a poet at the time. They got together a group of people there and formed a group that published Plowshares. Plowshares, again, the link to go. The war broke out and they disbanded. They got their own careers and they forgot all about the publication. Now, for a publication to flourish, you need a publisher, you need writers, and you need a public. And that is where you come in. The writers happened also as the writers group, because Margaret Mascarenhas and I together gave a workshop many years ago. And my mission is to get people to form groups, to write together, to share their ideas. Nothing seemed to happen for a while, but then the writers group started with 4 or 5 people as the leading lights. Amongst them, José Lourenço, who is not here today, but is quite well known. And the writers group grew and grew, then it split, but it's growing again. People who had never written before began to write because of the writers group. They would share their ideas and they would get feedback, be encouraged and published. Now, in here are the works of several people who began their writing career fairly recently, some even earlier, but they're well represented and it's worthwhile reading. As I said before, readers are important. So your mission, my mission is to convince you to pick up a copy today and to share it with your friends. And if they like it, persuade them to buy a copy. There are many wonderful things that I regret very much, is that people are always building new and better houses, but many of them have fewer and fewer books. There are houses that have not one book in them. This is a shame. If you go to college to learn to read, you should be able to read and encourage you. Jessica, thank you very much.
To invite the writers, thank you Victor, up to join us. Salil, Jugneeta and Fatima. I'd like to just read a very brief introduction note from Selma Carvalho, who's the founding editor of the journal, and she's in the UK, and she would rather be here than me. I know that, but for a fact. But I'm one of the commissioning editors for the Joao Roque Literary Journal, and I said I would love to introduce the journal because we worked on it together in the last 5 months. So these are her words. The Joao Roque Literary Journal was established on 1st January 2017 to provide a platform for Goan narrative fiction and non-fiction writing. At the time, and even today, there is no other platform in Goa for creative writing in English. The primary goal of the online journal is to mentor and reward literary writing, literature in English being an essential part of Goa's historiography. As such, we have 3 annual awards, which are Best in Fiction, Best in Non-Fiction, and Editor's Choice Award. The first 2 have an award prize of 10,000 linked to them, 10,000 rupees, not dollars, and the last one, 5,000 rupees. So we aim to produce a biannual print anthology of the very best writing that we publish. And we nominate our most promising writers for the Pushcart Press Awards, which is a recent development. A secondary goal of the journal is to promote Goa's liberal values of tolerance and diversity. Hence, we actively promote Konkani and Portuguese translations, and we encourage the writings of gender and sexual minorities. We encourage new writers to submit to the journal and are very conscious of promoting quality writing. All writing is assessed by at least 2 editors before being considered for publication, so please do send us your best work. And as I tell my students, please make sure it's edited before you submit it to us. Okay. I would now like to have the pleasure of introducing our guests on stage. Well, here. Salil, you're going first. Salil Chaturvedi's short fiction and poetry have appeared in various journals, including Wasafiri and the Indian Cultural Forum. Comics and haiku are old loves. His haiku and haibun have appeared in Modern Haiku, The Heron's Nest, and Frog Pond, among others. Salil is the Asia region winner of the Commonwealth Short Story Competition in 2008, and he won the Unison British Council Short Story Award in 2009. He brought out Shabduli, the first audiobook in Konkani for visually impaired people in 2015. His debut poetry collection, entitled In the Sanctuary of a Poem, was released at the Goa Arts and Literature Festival last year. He won the Joao Roque Literary Journal Editor's Choice Award this year, 2018. And I would now like to invite him to read from Kiran, his award-winning piece. Thanks.
Check. Thank you for coming. Happy to read from this work titled Kiran. It's 12 poems or cantos to a single poem, and I'll read 3 or 4 of them. Kiran 1. From this great height, I jettison lavender-smelling Kiran. Are you listening? My seed into the night of Mumbai, towards the ovum of earth, passionately hoping that my quintessence will mingle and release a species from extinction if my love for the earth has been true. Kiran 4. At the lakeside, by myself, in a rare comma of existence, I discovered the great silence that you often speak of, right there, on the edge of the lake. I understood what you mean when feel gravity through my buttocks, you say. A goat nibbling on the grass looked up at me, and how I don't know, but it communicated just how good the grass was. Keenly I observed the silent syntax of the universe, the lingo of thrusts and pinches, strokes and squeezes, rubs and nibbles, these morphemes of the cosmos. Now you don't have to speak of them. One wink will do. Kiran 9. As I sit in the hollow of this brook, deep in the molle forest, my bulging stomach facing upstream, the cool water enters my navel, carrying a few tadpoles, slim brown fish, fragments of floating moss, a red leaf, the song of a Malabar thrush, a monkey's shriek, and a flower of a kumdilo tree. The water swirls around the depression in my back, between my fractured T10 and T12 vertebrae, and makes its way downhill, already warned by the archives of my body of what awaits it in the flat, inventive plains. I'll finish with this one. Kiran 11. From this third floor flat in Donapal, I see an egret fly over a clump of coconut trees, a small water hole in a green field, and two moorhens building a nest around it. And far away on the Mandovi, what look like incessant water ants, the barges that work day and night, carrying a bit of red Goa, heap by heap, out to the waiting ships. I can also see a crow riding out on a barge. Perhaps they've taken his piece of earth this time. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm a big fan of Salil's poetry. So buy the anthology if you want to read more of those. Okay. Now, as if you need more reason to buy the anthology and get your hands on a copy, I'm going to introduce you to the next reader, Jugneeta Sudan. She's lived in Goa for the past 9 years, the longest in any one place since her birth in Udhampur, Jammu and Kashmir. With her peripatetic lifestyle, she feels she belongs nowhere but everywhere. In her journey with literary criticism, she is focused on children's classic literature, Western classical texts, art history, and poetry. It's a broad fields really. In her writings, she emphasizes the importance of critic as an artist. In Navin Times, Goa, her byline Booked and How featured books and authors for 5 years, and presently she contributes articles on art and culture to Daily O, India Today group. She's curated talks on contemporary art like Raza Dialogue with the Raza Foundation in Delhi and at Museum of Goa, and an evening of poetry, art and music at the Goa Pavilion during last year's Serendipity Arts Festival. A lifelong seeker, she loves to travel and visit arty towns all over the world. Her piece, Kamoish in Goa, was placed runner-up for the Joao Roque Literary Journal Best in Non-Fiction Award this year, 2018. I now like to invite her to read an extract from her award.
Kamoish in Goa, the journey of an epic. Despite his far-reaching influences on European, American, and South African writers, the great Renaissance poet Kamoish remains one of the best-kept secrets outside of Portugal and its colonies. His epic poem, Hoje Lusíadas, is a monument to the heroic deeds of Lusitanians, the courage and enterprise of Portuguese oceanic explorations, most notably Vasco da Gama's discovery of the sea route to India. Kamoish has been eulogized by many writers and poets through the centuries. But let's now turn our lens to the other end of the spectrum, the children of Goa who grew up reading Os Lusíadas in their school curriculum. They hailed the epic for its poetic splendor and imagery. It gave them a sense of an identity with the Portuguese. This thought arises from the concept of Luso-tropicalism adopted by the dictator Salazar. Simply put, the notion implied that ethnic tribes were Portuguese, of brotherhood and respect that sustained a humane coexistence of master-slave unity. In 2003, Goa's man of letters, Albino Gomes, undertook an ambitious task of producing a Konkani translation of Camões' epic. Inspired by Albino's effort, 5 years down the line, Cleto Afonso undertook a literary project, O Vaticinio da Swarga, an epic in Konkani and Portuguese. The adulation of Camões' epic is very much in place, but the Goan ideology has moved from just adulation. Cleto's work is a reparation of psychological scars of cosmetic lusotropicalism undergirding colonial domination and repression in Goa. Resting strong on the agency that pen is mightier than the sword, Cleto generates a dialogue between literatures and languages of ruler and the ruled in order to transform the common friendships between people and civilizations. Cleto's esoteric writing scales a landmark, taking Goan literature to a new level. An act of subversive writing undertaken with keen sensitivity and empathy. It disrupts many myths perpetuated by the powerful West. At the end of this journey, the subaltern comes into his own and stands tall, naked and proud, resplendent in his own history, heritage, language and culture. Throwing away phantoms of the past, he etches paths of glory by honoring Indian history and its people. A lyrical exaltation of the Indian freedom movement roots its refrain in a freedom song, more precious than any golden cage such as that of lusotropicalism. Taking these writings into account, we can say that Camões' Os Lusíadas has come a long way. It has been reinterpreted, recreated, and as such reborn, and the newer versions make an incisive cut into the veneer of supremacy, the so-called white man's burden. The panoramic view of the East from the East introduces the world to the sights, smells, and sounds of a different music in the plains and waters of India, and examines the truths of individuals and events in history, rooting them into alternative realities of this land. Thus, intercultural studies involving the epic have opened pathways of understanding and dialogue, renewed ways of seeing, facilitating a new present.
Thanks, Jugneeta. Fatima. I'd like to introduce Fatima in Noronha. She writes stories and edits books, among many other things. Over the last 45 years, a few hundred of her short pieces, articles, reflections, fiction, memoir, have featured in regional, national, and overseas print publications, and occasionally on air or online as well. Goa 1556 published Stray Mango Branches in 2013, a collection of vignettes of Goan life. Born in Lisbon, she moved to Goa with her parents in the 1960s, and later gypsied around India with her fighter pilot husband and their 2 daughters. Fatima has called many places home before returning to her roots in Goa. She won the Joao Roque Literary Journal's Best in Non-Fiction Award 2017 for her piece, The Menino Will Come Tonight, and she will read us an extract. Thank you.
At Christmas night, 1962, we were still together and Lisboa was home. Downtown in the Praça do Rocio, the flower vendors peasant women in scarves and thick black shawls lit a fire on the cobbles to survive that midnight when business was certain despite the weather. It just got colder and colder till it was a fraction of a degree from zero. Zero in Lisbon, can you imagine? But it did not rain, so we went dry-shod to midnight mass. My parents never owned a car, and we were possibly born walking. But as long as we lived in Lisbon, we went to mass in a Merc. Lisbon taxis were made by Mercedes-Benz, still are. We lived in a northern suburb where everything was available. Open spaces for evening walks, parks, swings, schools, markets, an airport, and 2 modern churches to choose from. For impractical reasons of their own, maybe to pretend they were home in Goa at Christmas. For midnight mass, our parents opted to take us right across the city, almost down to the Tagus, to the Baroque Igreja de São Roque, the earliest Jesuit church in Portuguese territory, a tuffle pile which survived the earthquake of 1755. Plain on the outside, its interior is said to be the most beautiful of any church in Portugal. It is certainly more highly decorated than a field marshal. There is a special chapel there dedicated to St. Francis Xavier, a favorite saint in Goa. Every year on the 3rd of December, homesick Goans in Lisbon would organize a mass at São Roque. So it was there that I first heard that most Goan of all company hymns, São Francisco Xavier, sung forth with ardor and punctuated with sniffles. My father's eyes would moisten too, and I would wonder what the fuss was about. He was not shy, but he did not tell us that his grandfather Raimundo composed the hymn. Christmas Eve, 1962, at night, wearing our new outfits and old overcoats, we were packed into a Mercedes. We reached São Roque just before midnight, in time to hear a children's choir sing, "Leave the nations hoje menino, come little boy Jesus."
People are giggles from the audience. I think people could relate. Yeah, I could maybe smile.